Faker was actually the first one back to stage for T1, and he immediately sat down, and it looked like he was in practice tool. So what do you think he was practicing? Dodging.
Pressing flash before Valkyrie, I think, is what he was trying to go for. Already, we are here into the Champ Select powered by Omen and HyperX, and we have Raz's wish might be granted here because the Kalista already locked in. Talia going to be taken away. That's the adaptation. We'll see whether Senna is still going to be locked in here, and it should be.
I think this is a huge adaptation. The teams that have not had super high priority on Talia have all been punished. That you need to slam this champion, especially when the Ahri, Orianna, Azir are banned. So really good adaptation, I think, here already for T1. We'll see what Faker can do on the opposite side and what Knight's answer will be into it.
Yeah, we're going to get the Renata at least first anyway, but I'm curious because, I mean, you're already seeing Ori, Azir, Talia, Ahri taken away. You're kind of going down into the next tier of them. Maybe it'll be something like a Nico that he just decides to go back towards to make sure that he's going to be okay, but I think you do have to take mid lane here. Otherwise, you end up in a position where you just ban away even more of these picks, but LeBlanc has been a very strong pick for Knight for a very long time, and he may just bring this one out here.
Has certainly worked in the past into a Talia, but the pick away on the Cassante. Finn, he hasn't lost on this champion yet. Zeus was handed his first L on it in the last game. We'll see whether it's going to be a blessing or a curse here.
For T1 though, I feel like you could still take a counter pick here for your top lane. Keria has shown he plays so many things with Senna.
Well, this is the thing, like, because you can't ban Maokai, Tahm Kench, and Ornn, which are all of his Senna champions.
Sejuani as well, just...
Yeah, that's true. Like, Poppy would be fine, I'm sure. But instead, the Tahm Kench will be locked away. We'll see whether Gumayusi Keria are going to have a better time in exactly the same lane matchup in game number 2.
So probably going to get some jungle bans from T1 to target Shun here, and then BLG protection ban this Cassante. It sounds really weird to say that, protection for Cassante, but you know, are you worried about the range tops yourself? Are you worried about you know, the Camille or the likes of Poppy as well?
I mean, Twisted Fate, Vayne are probably the bans, right?
I'd imagine so. And then I imagine you're going to get the LeBlanc ban to round it out with the Nico. We already kind of highlighted, look nice, going to struggle when it comes to champion pulls. He's a big like Silas player and a Kali player and that kind of stuff, so maybe we end up seeing him go back towards those assassins. But yeah, there's the TF ban. I've no doubt Vayne is going to shortly follow here for BLG.
And then what does it mean? Is it going to be the jungle pickup and then we have, you know, Zeus holding on to that final pick? Or, because the top lane has been exposed already, do we allow Oner to get a good matchup there in the jungle?
Yeah, I really like a Xin Zhao pick for BLG. I feel like would go pretty hard.
Would also go pretty hard for T1 as well, and Oner loves that champion at the moment. Certainly one of his favorites, as that is the Tristana taken away. Saw Caps have pretty good performance on that champion in the last series, and Knight, no stranger to it either. Does pair very well with the Kalista, especially if you're playing the more lethality version. Gives you a bunch more of that consistent damage later into the game. So an understandable ban. Will it be the Vayne? Will it be something else? I think a Xin ban could also be a decent one here for BLG. Ball's in their court, though. We'll see what they decide to take away.
I mean, Aurelion Sol is up as well. It's not exactly a nice pick. We saw him have a pretty miserable time on it in the playoffs and kind of said, hey, I picked it because Chovy picked it. But maybe he's putting the errors. We'll have to see what exactly he wants to go for in that mid lane. But I imagine you're going to get your jungler here just to try and make sure you're okay. And you get that first pick here for Oner with the... Although, with the Cassante locked in, maybe you just go for the counter pick and hold jungle counter. Because maybe you want to go for something like a Jax if Xin Zhao is taken.
I kind of like the priority pick on the Xin. Like you were saying, Kobe, it's just something that has been really strong for both Oner and Shun. And trying to get that away from him could be a good idea. But there is that Wukong we've seen left up and available. Both Wukong and Jarvan just feel like LPL junglers. You know, I feel like that's the flavor. As Akshan, yeah, that was obviously the choice. Having a bit of a giggle there as well.
The only thing why I don't really like the Wukong is that Wukong doesn't do a lot before level 6. And we've seen so much early priority be successful. Is he going to pull a Canyon? The Kazakhs? And now, this in solo queue, it's amazing. The isolated matchup, Kazakhs versus Xin, is amazing. It's just that how you can integrate it into competitive and actually play it with your team, because Kazakhs absolutely demolishes the 1v1 versus Xin, and it makes it really hard for Xin, like mid-game, then walking into face check brush. Wukong is definitely more the scaling, more the team fight here. So BLG this time around are indexing. This is a way slower comp for them. Obviously, they have the Corki and the Wukong, but they still started it off with bot lane prio. So they can still start the game by playing through bottom lane, through Elkin again, just like they always classically do. Elkin so good at building for dives, so good at working on timings with Shen towards bottom side of the map. It's just that Wukong into Xin Zhao, it's a little bit more dicey.
That's what I was going to say. I think the fact that you don't really have a lot to bring to the table as Wukong until post 6 means that Oner, if he does play around this bottom side and Keria continues to get these incredible abyssal dives, it is going to be tough for Elkin to really push that advantage. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Oner starting on that top side of the map, trying to path down to help out Gumayusi and Keria in the early stages and try and beat this Wukong's punch.
I do feel like Elkin really have switched on though for this series. I think that there were some gaps that we spotted in their matchup against PSG, but that is looking to have disappeared in this series.
It was funny because I feel like even the games that BLG lost, like they were so on that they were almost too good and too far ahead. They were crushing too hard, and then they threw some leads.
It just wasn't the practice they were looking for. You have to make sure that you get your reps in before you go to the next matchup. So 5 games were necessary. Now it is time to jump onto the Rift for game number 2. BLG, a lot of comfort here. The Corki and Kalista, something we've seen work in tandem very, very effectively. Kalista for the early game, the Corki for late. And T1, I'm a little bit worried. If there's anything that I'm worried about, it's the lack of damage. I do love that they picked the Zac for that added engage. You see a Corki, you want to engage onto him as much as you can. Getting that engage range is important, but not a massive amount of damage from the squad until the center gets online.
Yeah, this T1 comp really does critically rely on some good play from Faker. Faker had a rough game number 1. We do know, though, he is one of the players that you can invest in. The mentality and being able to bounce back in a lot of these situations and then turn it around and have a good game. I mean, they basically have just swapped their matchup here. So Faker this time around with his hands on the Taliyah. See how many plays he can create.
And I do like the addition of the Zac in the top lane as well. One of the things we pointed at was a lack of engage for T1. So you had to TP Zeus in behind on a K'Sante to try and make a play. There had to be some creativity to their action. This time around, though, you just get to send the big old blob in. Just let him do what he does best, is just bounce all over people. And yes, you've got Renate who can do some work against that kind of engage, but still, it gives you that moment as T1 to actually set up these fights in your favor.
And saving the Zac for counterpick is actually really big as well, because it meant that none of those Zac answers come out of the jungle, because it's often the jungle that is the one that is having to block, Arctic Assault to come out, pillars being put in front, if we remember when Trundle existed. There are a lot of these options that you can have, and of course, the Wukong doesn't have as many of those.
Yeah. Little tip from Meteos, one of the original Zac aficionados. But, he's obviously been in a lot of those situations, and he really recommended, if you're playing Zac into one of those blocker jungles that's going to knock you out of your slingshot, try and start the team fight with the Q instead and see if you can get, one of those slappy hand
Stretch
plays.
Armstrong.
Instead. Don't always rely so heavily on the E.
See whether that is something they decide to do. Having a look at this bottom lane to your right there, as you can see. A little bit of Biffo going down, but not too much. As Knight already taking a little bit of a beating here in the counter matchup. I love that. When a player has that level of confidence to take the other side of the matchup, face up as well as Handshake here towards the bottom side. Keria not as tanky as he was towards the end of the last game, and the Senatom Kench not having as much early game presence as a Kalista Renata. Who would have thought?
Yep, getting their push in, and their jungler also pathing down towards their side. Of course, you get that super common ward on the Raptors that Shun has been able to walk around. Most junglers have gotten into the habit of avoiding that ward and going straight for the red. He's done that as well.
Zeus going to have to pick up some blobs here. Just gets so much health back per blob. I know we've been watching Zac for a really long time. Still bothers me.
Yeah. The blobs and the grass peels, and there's so much sustain on that champion. Obviously emerging as one of these really high prio tanks that can transition into the later stages of the game. And alarmingly large burst damage for the backside as well.
I'm just glad we got rid of Rek'Sai, because that was the biggest problem I had.
Yes, that's true. That is very true. Very glad that we don't see her in this top lane over and over again. Has been a real rough one. But Been able to clear up this wave very nicely. Does find himself in a 2 CS advantage as these waves do meet. Oner coming up towards his top side to see whether he can affect anything as all of the camps are now down.
Shun wants to go check on this Scuttle Crab here. He does not have mid priority, and top side is about 50-50 right now.
Ooh, Shun looking for an opportunity here. Faker is so pushed up. Knight not going to be able to offer too much back, but really good positioning here from Faker, just taking his exit. Will be able to get himself out.
I mean, it's a nice idea from Shun. T1 thought that Shun was going to be on the bottom side of the map taking the other Scuttle Crab, so Faker was hugging that top side of the lane, but I think once he saw Knight step up, Faker kind of realizing, hang on, something's afoot here, and managing to step away, so good read from the T1 mid laner.
Right, bit of a shove here towards the bottom side of the map as well. Gumayusi Keria going to be able to get this crash, I believe. We'll be able to escort the wave in before they do decide to go back. So a much better start, you could say, here for T1, moving to a slight gold advantage as well with the amount of extra farm they've been able to pick up.
Yeah, definitely way, way better. I mean, Faker has not been able to solo kill Knight in the matchup, but he does have a CS lead here on the Talia, and both of them using their teleports to get right back out. Oner with the deep wards, replacing those wards in the bottom side jungle. I mean, this has been one of the critical plays that has found T1 success as bottom lane going for another trade.
Yeah, nice handshake there. Get a little bit of CC as Elk still just putting these sticks in. Oner turns up, good vision available here for BLG. We'll be able to back away effectively.
This is something that we saw in their previous series too there, where T1, around the 4.5 minute like reset timer, they'd get that second layer of wards in your jungle to spot out plays, and they've done a lot with that extra information. Shun, though, is on the opposite side of the map. And has been able to actually avoid them. I just want to point out the ward that was on blue plus Gromp now just expires for T1, but they'll know the respawn timer there. And Shun is going to be able to steal away Raptors and possibly make another visit at Mr. Faker.
Yep. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Level 5 though doesn't have the Cyclone to lock Faker down, and will instead just take a volley threaded into the back of his noggin. That is a nice double seismic shove from Faker there, who really did not like how game 1 went, I don't think.
Gank me again!
Yeah, exactly. There's going aggressive, and I almost thought that this was going to be a consequential fight on the top side of the map. I'm sorry, Kobe, I shouldn't have done that. Wet noodles aplenty.
Nicely done, though, by Faker to actually get some pressure there, because again, this opens up Oner to start to move in towards the Rift Child. Shun, though, going to try and respond by diving bot side, and Gumayusi's very low.
He really is. In fact, they don't even need him. There's a flash forward. First blood going over to On. He will be answered as Keria locks down that kill, and now he's going aggressive. Faker moving down towards his bottom side as well. The wall comes in. Seismic shove pulls him back, and there is the answer. The 2-for-1 trade for T1.
Faker's back. He's so back on the Talia. Makes the roam play down bottom side. They get the extra kill. It still started out with that classic BLG bottom lane domination, looking for the dive and getting that first blood, but really big punishes for T1. And it also allows Oner, since they saw the Wukong down there, they saw Shun, he gets to steal away the blue buff here. Let's take another look at it.
Yeah, you can see the poke coming through from BLG. They immediately get onto Gumayusi with the handshake as well, but a bit of a mistake from On. Actually hand shook the Senna away from them, so BLG had to flash, which meant that when this comes through now with the ult from Faker, Elk doesn't have any sort of flash, so cleanses the stun, but still gets hit by the flick back, and there's no way that he can get out.
Yeah, Elk and On are so... Oh, never mind.
Bin looking like he's in a little bit of trouble here towards the top side of the map. Both of these champions can tank pretty nicely. There's the flash just to make sure he can get a... Wait a sec. Can he? The all-out comes on through as Zeus was taking the turret for around 16 years, and there is the kill back in the end. Bin gonna be able to go 1-for-1.
Oh, Binny boy! I kind of wanted him to live there for the Cassante memes. But he's good for one, though. Bin is always good for 1 kill, at least in the side lanes. You saw it last time around with the Vayne in the 1v4. This time around, Cassante in the 1v2. Bottom side's a party, though, and Shun is finally level 6. Wukong, level 6 ultimate is available. Xin Zhao is on the way here, though, so Oner, gotta respect the timing.
Yeah, Oner moving on in. Probably should see that this Gromp is being taken. There is the smite, as we saw off screen, as Keria moving on in. Does find the Warrior Trickster. There's the Abyssal dive, though, to get him forward. Handshake just to disengage They're from on, they want nothing to do with this.
Faker had the move on mid, so they didn't want to overextend. They already got caught out by the Faker roam once, didn't want to let it happen twice. Knight going to reset there and start to move in towards mid as well as he's picked up the Hex Drinker, so we'll give him a little bit of easier trading, but with T1 having this much pressure mid, objectives have just been theirs, but Kobe, this play from Bin is just sick.
Yeah, I mean, this thing being unstoppable is so crazy. It's a really nice double dash into ultimate from Bin. He uses those like mini moments of CC, and then on the reset from his W, almost is able to get out of there. Kill, of course, is finished off there by T1, and they're able to go 1-for-1. Faker now visited.
Yeah, if 2 didn't work, then let's bring 3. Dawning Shadow comes in. Fantastic handshake once again from On. I think that T1 might need to think about banning away that champion. Hostile takeover once again. On is going to make sure that there is no answer.
Just using that to make sure they could disengage. Not going to be any sort of objectives up before On has his ultimate back on the tables, but topside again, we're seeing a lot of fighting. I don't know.
Good movement.
Yeah, is it fighting or is it just existing aggressively? You know, sort of being there. Nothing better to do than to hit each other with your buttons.
I do love the concept of living aggressively.
That's this.
Yeah.
Here's your example.
Oh.
Zeus is going to get all outed. Exactly. A lot of bloblets for him to eat as he's going to bounce. And as you can see there, that's just a whole bunch of health back. And he's going to win out on the health trade when it looked a little bit dicey. Zac things.
They were living so aggressively that junglers were thinking about joining, though. That's when it can get...
That's why they disengaged. They're like, no. It's not about that.
Yeah, you get to live vicariously through us, not actually with us, all right?
Yeah, that's not how it goes. Let's see one back here towards this bottom side of the map. Trying to stay alive in this lane. Almost at a second plate here for Faker. Should be able to get there. Takes a turret shot as well, just casually. And not quite able to lock that one down, but that is just fine. Zeus getting all of his health back, just being a Zac. And he's almost towards his 3rd turret plate here towards this top side. A large reason why T1 do have a little bit of a gold advantage. Largely about these turrets being pushed into so aggressively. Oner now will be able to take his 4th grub as well, as there's another handshake from On, but T1, they're making their way in. The Ignite ticking down. Piercing Darkness not going to do as much, but he is going to be fine and get out.
They got the damage they needed to, though. Faker taken low means that you can't really contest on this top side for the Void Grubs. Package picked up for Knight, though, means they won't have that available for that next Dragon, so curious to see if T1 will keep track of that. Or even if now that they do have at least the 4 Void Grubs, they would just continue to put pressure on side lanes and look for chip damage on towers instead.
Yeah, Faker saying woo here towards the bottom side of the map, looking for a plate of his own. Elk should be able to move down here. We'll see whether Faker can actually stick around for long enough, and it looks like the answer is going to be no. Not wanting to risk it, understandably so as well. Elk gets in here, not a lot of information as to where the rest of the BLG are, because they have had just such good vision for themselves in this game, keeping control of the map.
And I believe On just walked over that control ward. Maybe he didn't pass through the brush, but that deep control ward that we saw placed by Oner super long ago in the BLG side of the jungle, still standing there. He must not have actually touched it.
Oh, once again, Oner and Gumayusi now on the prowl. And Shun on his red buff. There is a smite, but it's not going to work out there for Oner. Not quite able to get in there in time. As teleport back here for Zeus. He's got his Sunfire cape. Feeling good about being a Zac. Walking towards Bin. Does avoid the pushback. It looks like the Zac is just going to be pretty happy. This lane is going to continue. Not sure whether anyone's going to die, but at least, you know, feeling like he has some control.
Again, though, there's a lot of control for T1 on the bottom side. We already highlighted, as Kobe was saying, the war that still exists in that just beside Red Buff, but a lot of vision control in River as well. And Faker has been continuously getting the push, getting good trades against Knight. And with the shove on mid, there's always that opportunity where T1 can just lend that pressure into the bottom side of the map. And I think that's what T1 are really trying to set up for, especially a minute left until Dragon. This is where keeping that control on the bot side River is going to be crucial for them.
Yeah, Zeus going to be able to grab that 3rd plate that he was looking for. Cures that one for himself, knows that his mid and jungle are just stealing away the blue buff. Shun turns up, spotted there, but not going to be able to affect too much here. Level 8 now for the Wukong, and I think team fights are going to be where BLG can really start to make their mark in this game. We'll see whether they can catch T1 unawares, because T1 also, I mean, their composition There's a lot of CC available here as well, so I think it could be really explosive if we get to some of these 5v5s.
It certainly is. I think one of the critical things for BLG is going to be playing around their package timings for Knight. The Corki package is going to be their biggest tool in really trying to combat some of these objective setups. T1 so far, with their 4 Void Grubs getting the Void Might, plus their single Dragon start, feeling pretty good. But BLG, you know, once Knight's able to get past level 11 here, once they're able to get up next pickup on package, they'll feel a lot better about the situation. 10 seconds on the arrival of the Dragon, though, and you can already see all these wards in place ahead of time, ready for it to start out.
The Keria positioning aggressively with his Abyssal Dive, as we can see. Gumayusi moving down the river, eating some honey fruit now. That setup, like you were talking about, kind of working out there. On misses what feels like his first handshake. It's just been so on point with those. Of course, an opportunistic one right there. See whether he'll have his eye in for the next team fight that is coming up, or whether they're going to be able to fight for it at all, because you can see Shun and Knight heading towards that top side.
Yeah, BLG made the call. We are going to wait for the next Dragon. Just trade this one, no problem. Go for Rift Herald, top side instead. Meanwhile, pretty quick rotation from T1 immediately after the Dragon, and they're going to head to try and chase them off of Rift Herald. Barely finished off, and the escape now is good.
Well, now a potential dive available, thrown back with the seismic shove as Elk is in trouble. Keria dives forward, they take down the turret, great handshake. Another hostile takeover is going to be good, but this time, Keria is just that little bit too tanky. Dawning Shadow avoided there by Elk just narrowly. They do get themselves out, but the prize is there for T1. They're able to take down that turret. Another seismic shove barely avoided here by On as BLG find themselves on the back foot, having to use that teleport to defend.
Elk was just the cherry on top. T1, really smart play. Go in towards mid, cut BLG off from regrouping underneath the mid lane tower, so they managed to get it. The fact that you end up getting summoner spells from Elk as well is just an extra little bit on top, and fantastic stuff for them to actually keep that at bay, because BLG, we talked about already, had used the package to contest Void Grubs, so didn't have it for Dragon. So T1 just trying to force while they are further ahead, especially with those first item completions coming through for them.
Still very, very close. This game feels like it's just the 2 Dragons that are in it here for T1, and Knight is getting more and more scary. Doesn't have his first item completion just yet. Corki, of course. 3 is probably the sweet spot. You want that level 16 as well, and certainly going to be one of these things to look out for in the late game. Faker wasn't allowed to get there in game number 1. This one feels like a bit of a slower game.
I think On, though, has been the standout for me in this game. The fact that you end up consistent with these handshakes, the hostile takeovers have been great. And he's been a player that has struggled a lot with, at least in the beginning of his career, with how aggressive he was to go. He had a great mechanical style to him, but lacked the macro understanding of where he needed to be and what he needed to be doing at all points in time. But now he needs to use it again, because Knight's in trouble topside.
He certainly is.
Yeah, this is a rough one. There's a seismic shove. It's going to miss, but it gets the flash. Knight now in trouble. He's surviving for a long time, but Gumayusi, he'll have the range. Bailout not quite going to be there as Oner locks down that kill. Knock up after the cleanse. It's a disaster for Elk. T1 take 2. Seismic shot once again onto On. That is not going to be another kill. A third would be a bit much.
Huge picks here for T1. Enemy jungle's on bottom side of the map, and so they overloaded up here, almost baited in by trying to get the bailout for Knight here. Elk, threw the Q to try and get a little bit more damage and see if they could get that execute, if they could get the revival for Knight, and it ends up costing Elk his life as well. He was the gold leader on the side of BLG, and T1, they get a bonus.
And Knight thinking he can just finish off the wave. He's got so much wave clear, but not able to do so with the amount of members that T1 are here. And as Kobe alluded to, Elk goes forward trying to kill Gumayusi, but Keria with the tongue lash over the wall means that you can't get back out of there for Elk, and he ends up going down alongside his comrade in the mid lane.
That's a big gold swing. Means a lot for this game too, because it's still pretty early on here. So T1, they get 2 kills plus the outer tower, and they get that extra mobility from the top side. You see the wards that they left behind.
Feels like, once again, a risk was taken. Red side selected here by T1. This time for them, it is working out. As at the moment, it's looking like we're heading towards a 1-to-1, but this could be a pick here for BLG. Keria having to flash to get himself out of the way. Knight there backing up. BLG not going to lose anyone just yet. T1 with control of the river. Oner goes in. Not sure about that one. As now a flank angle here for Keria. Wants to get that tongue lash out, find an opportunity. As Knight not going to get hit by that one. There's the Fate's call. Dawning Shadow flies forward once again. This bottom lane is in so much trouble. The hostile takeover again is phenomenal, but used very defensively here. As T1, they own this jungle.
And now they own the mid lane as well. T1 forcing BLG into that top side means they can get that tier 2 tower that they already set very low. Knight alone under the tower. Faker considered using the Weaver's Wall, but T1 are just going to march their way down the mid instead.
Really good job keeping up the pressure here, defending the vision that they have placed. T1 always one step ahead, placing these deep wards, then continually attacking BLG. On the bottom side too, they were hoping that Bin was going to be able to answer on that tower, but it's still too healthy. He cannot afford to stick around, so BLG do not get anything back cross map.
And now BLG are going to be forced to fight T1. Dragon in 20 seconds, a third Dragon for T1. You can see Knight can reset and look for the package. Going to try and shove out topside first, but this is where T1, if they win this fight, they can basically guarantee themselves the game off of how much they can take off the back of this.
Yeah, so much map pressure just inherently by being able to pick up that soul point. Now that Dragon has spawned, teleport into the mid lane for BLG to make sure they keep some semblance of control, and it's alongside a package here as well for Knight. Rift Herald, they're throwing the kitchen sink at making sure this soul point does not go over to T1. They have control of the river.
Yeah, Keria's going to have a really good Devourer in this team fight, because you really have to worry about rank 2 ultimate from Wukong, who's got the level 6, or who has the package on Knight. Is he going to go?
Weaver's Wall going to try and split this fight up. There's the seismic shove. Knight, he hasn't used the package. He tries to use it defensively, but it's cut off. And now there's Stretch Armstrong. He dives into the pit. The Drake is secured here for BLG, but T1 are just rolling over the top. Bin, he can't Cassante his way out of that one. And it is an ace almost. As On is the only one that survives.
And Baron, T1 just absolutely wipe them. Knight chokes it. Faker goes in on the Talia, and it is a clean sweep.
Well, I think we should have known. Talia, hard counter to Corki. It's impossible to play that matchup, and now we understand on both sides, just don't do it.
I gotta say, it's not the first time we've seen Knight struggle on an international stage when it came to having these moments where he can pop off, tries to hold the package because he wants to get massive value, but instead gives his life and gets nothing for it. The CC chain from T1 is perfect, and immediately Zeus sees his opportunity, leaps into the pit. Dragon be damned. T1 want the lives of BLG, and they're handed on a silver platter.
Yes, they are. They're like, oh, great. We get this objective. We get Baron as well.
A little bit of this. It's a buffet, you know?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Wow. That is just the first Drake as well, going over to BLG. Denying the soul point, absolutely fantastic. Doesn't really solve the problems, though, because look at that gold lead. It has just exploded. Now 5,000 to the tune of T1. Zeus is a brick wall on this Zac as well. Good to see that Zeus is one of these players that's had a bit of a rough split. I think we've spoken about it many times throughout this tournament so far. But I think his Zac, his Vayne as well, his Twisted Fate have looked absolutely fantastic. And although he wasn't able to quite get over the top against Keen in the final versus Gen G, I think Zeus has still been very, very good, especially on the Zac. The Zac is just... If you pick Zac in the right spot, I feel like it's one of the most unanswerable champions.
And he's got the unending despair as well for the extra long healing and sustained Zac gameplay. Meanwhile, the rest of T1, though, they're going to 4-1 split push that Zac in mid lane pushing up. And they just have to slowly and surely here with the Baron buff whittle down secondary tower. Zeus is going to get that mid lane all the way up to the inhibitor tower before joining.
Yep, T1 just playing it very, very slowly, waiting for that minion wave. Should now be able to walk up and get some extra damage onto this turret. There's the rocks, they go down. That means there's no way to counter engage. T1 will take this bottom inner turret. Just the top one remaining as far as that second round of turrets are concerned. And 5-0, the global gold advantage here for T1, just massive. This is feeling, it's feeling just about as doomed as Game 1 did on the other side.
But that's the thing, is like, how do you try and come back from this as BLG? You don't really have a side lane threat that can really do particularly much. Knight is going to struggle to clear out these Baron up creeps. At any point in time, Faker can wall you off from your own base, and they can start to take these turrets as well. All that T1 are doing is playing with their food. They're moving to topside to take this last outer turret, and as soon as you're in your base as BLG, you don't get access to any more fun in this game.
Not quite working out There's now BLG. They're looking to try and defend here with 3. Elk moving on up. You can see Knight making his way forward as well. Unstoppable used here by Bin to absorb some of that CC, but there's another Weaver's Wall that will guarantee this inner turret. I thought Faker was going to go a little bit further on that one, but instead he is going to take the safer route. And they do just guarantee that the turret is going to be taken. That is 6 just inhibitor turrets left up and standing here for BLG.
Yeah, and then they will pillage the jungle as well. Blue buff stolen, Gromp stolen, T1. Really taking away any of the opportunity here for BLG as Bin is still on Cassante.
Yeah, he does have a long walk in order to get back to that inhibitor turret, but yes, like you said, relatively durable and should be able to clear out this wave quite nicely.
Ghost Burn just before Dragon, though, was a nice little victory for T1 that they didn't really have to invest too much to get, so they'll be very happy with just blowing the Summoner spell. And already you can see Shun trying to get in onto this bottom side to get some sort of vision control as BLG are pushing out this bot wave as well. But I think at this stage, with T1, how strong they are, it's so difficult for BLG to really have a hope in this fight. Knight will have the package available, so maybe he can get some sort of action with that, but Faker's flicks and Faker on this Talia has been so good at shutting down BLG at every opportunity.
And you mentioned how hard this Zac is going to be to take down, Atlas. I mean, Zeus has a 2-level lead over Bin on the Cassante. 3 items completed. This Zac is going to be immortal with the extra healing amp from the Spirit Visions as well.
And it feels so bad to, like, need to press the ignite button on the tank, you know? But I think they might have to if they ever want a chance of killing him. Or you just accept that you can't and then try and kill the damage dealers. Because Gumayusi, Faker, they are less mobile, especially after that Weaver's Wall does come down. BLG, some opportunities, especially with that package available. Knight could be dangerous, and we'll see whether T1 can do it once again. Another flick back immediately. Has to use the Fate's Call as On is going to be saved. Keria just standing in that front line. Zeus on the flank angle. The Zac looking for that opportunity. There is the Weaver's Wall to go through. Dawning Shadow to make sure that T1 are all absolutely fine. And in goes Zeus. Doesn't find the stretching strike, but he just doesn't take damage. Knight gets a decent package this time around, but the Cyclone does absolutely nothing. Oner tries to go aggressive. Knight gets at least 1 there as the bailout comes in, and T1, they're just a brick wall. They're not going to be taken down. Their health bar is still above 50% on, having to get out of there. And Knight, there is just nothing left in the tank. Keria just chasing after him, tongue at the ready, and Faker will throw the rocks at the Renata to finish off the support. Zeus, yeah, this might take some time, but I think he might be able to get it. And there it goes, just lands the slingshot, and down goes the Corki.
The fight lasts so long. The fact they cannot get through the T1 health bars with Gumayusi heals, or Keria shields, or Zeus just being unkillable in these fights. T1 just walk over BLG.
Well, yes, very slowly, just walk towards them. If you don't do damage, it doesn't matter if you don't take damage, I guess.
Look at Guma there as well, kind of spacing back on the Senna. And then as they charge in, Oner is going to get pushed around here, and once that Xin Zhao ultimate does actually fall, you see the re-engage is quite nice from BLG actually. Shun and Knight, you mentioned the package over to the other side, and they'll get the 1 kill, but it costs them everything, because On is already so low, Shun is already chunked so low, they've got nothing left by that time, and Zeus is just healing right back up as they chase them all the way down.
And Keria just does not take damage on this Tahm Kench. Giving him all of this extra money is something that we've definitely learned in the LCK many, many times. He just is immortal when you get later and later into the game, as is Zeus, as we saw just there, landing the slingshot very nicely as T1 have started off the Baron. They have all of the control. Zeus just bodyguard here for T1. Gumayusi backing up his support. Keria slinks into Fog of War once again. Bin trying to aggressively position himself, trying to get his way in. As he eats all of those rocks, there's another wall. As the Cyclone this time into the backline is fantastic. It lands onto Gumayusi, but it's a trade of AD carries. And Zeus is buying so much space. There goes the Wukong. Zeus, is he going to take damage? Will he? Will it happen?
He will, and then he'll heal it.
Yes, so he will. He'll continue to take damage, but heals way more than he takes. As Knight is trying to hide behind the Gromp.
Where do you go?
Stay still for me, buddy. Nope, not going to work out there. Tried to be tricky.
Knight was caught between a frog and a catfish.
Oh, no.
And nowhere to go. And T1 are inside the base. They're taking Baron at the same time. Zeus says, I'll go for the end. You get the objectives.
Yep. He's not going to be killing anyone, but he does manage to take down that inhibitor turret like you were talking about. And yeah, slowly but surely. Yes. Putting his blobs against the inhibitor. Doesn't quite work out there as Keria manages to get another wave forward, and that is the Baron being taken. And I believe Gumayusi, yeah, he was out on the map, so that is 5 members with the purple buff.
And what do you do now as BLG coming into the next game? Because this is clearly a problem now. Keria gobbles up Elk on the back line. So even though this fight looks great on the top half of the map, your entire backline is just disintegrating to the catfish and a blob. So Shun dealt with thanks to Oner and Faker. And then Knight just does not do enough damage on Corki. And there goes Shun.
Okay.
Just pop goes the Weasel.
I'm not entirely sure. We're lacking a little context there, but that is fine. 6-0-5 for Flubber. And Keria, he can lick this turret down if he would like to. And there is the Zac in once again, lands right on top of On. Just not quite able to do too much. And yes, there are 3 members of BLG now throwing sticks and all sorts of stuff towards their Zac, but he still wants to go aggressive. Bin moving forward, and he is very, very tanky, but T1 just looks undeterred. They will be able to take the inhibitor towards the bottom side of the map. Just 1 inhibitor remaining, and Faker, he's ushering a minion wave towards that one as we speak.
There's just no stopping them. T1 will get to take everything that they want. Top wave collected, now going to start to move in. And Zeus can engage from so far away that the second BLG show, Zeus can go in.
He's rooted. Is Zeus going to go for it? He wants the Q instead.
Oner kills the creep, come on.
Well, T1 now have a minion wave towards this turret. Still looking for a dive attempt. Weaver's Wall does come down. That will guarantee this one. Very textbook here for T1. They'll lock that one down. Now they go aggressive. In goes Zeus. Does get Elk out of there, but now they might have an opportunity. The blob is finally going relatively low. Still has cell division. I'm pretty sure that we haven't seen it so far this game. Flash out of Shun. Has to avoid the seismic shove. The inhibitor does go down now, and BLG, they just can't get any lethal blows onto T1.
Yeah, they jumped the front line pretty low, but they're going back in.
All right, Zeus, he still has 100 health, so he may as well go in. There it is. Stretch Armstrong comes down. The cell division coming on forward, and he gets devoured. Never you mind. Zeus still has the passive up and available.
Oh my God.
This is just absurd. Bin going down very low. The Nexus turret's not going to last, and T1, they will even out the series against BLG.
T1 bound.